So we're running a 2-day film festival called Transforming Cinema. It's a trans film festival that's based at the Curzon, the Sheffield Town Hall, the Sheffield E.D.E.N and the Showroom Cinema and the Void Cinema at the Hallam University. And we have international film screening, we have workshops by Rebecca Root, Kate Adair and Jake Graff and other people, and we've got films that are premiering today at the Curzon from one of our latest projects that is called E.D.E.N Shorts.
And can you tell me a little bit about what inspired you personally to get involved in this film festival?
Well, I run E.D.E.N Film Productions, and we ran a project called Trans-phobia last year, and it was to create a feature documentary based on raising awareness and trashing transphobia, and that screened at the Sheffield E.D.E.N and it sold out to 110 people. And we really realised there was a demand for it, so we went for a competition called People's Project, and we didn't get the top 3, but then we managed to get some smaller funding to put this on. And what inspires the most is that it's so important to raise awareness and tackle transphobia, and to provide a platform for trans, gender, queer and non-binary people.
And that was my question, why do you think it's important to give the trans community this platform?
I think it's important that they tell their own stories rather than people telling it for them. So like at our projects, we work with the LGBT community, and they've been involved in making the storyline, filming it, editing it. They've had complete creative control, and I think that's really important, especially with the media representation today is pretty dire. So I think it's important. It's also something that is new to South Yorkshire, and I think it's exciting. So that's the main aims for it.
And you mentioned the mainstream media, so can you give us some examples of the ways that you think that the mainstream media's representation of the trans community isn't adequate enough?
Okay, so for instance, the Daily Mail has several, I think I just need to say Daily Mail, but they've done several articles and things that have been, talk about sex change or something, and then there's exploratory documentaries that just talk about the wrong thing, whereas we should be highlighting positiveness and giving them a platform rather than talking about them. They should be able to talk about themselves for themselves and tell their own stories. So that's why.
Can you tell me some of the ways in which not having a positive representation of the trans community can affect the trans community?
Yeah, so obviously it's statistically known that trans people are more likely to commit suicide than cis people, and there's also high levels of mental health. Obviously there is with cis people, I think it affects obviously mental health, and it's also, if people are talking about you and saying horrendous things, then it's awful. And for me, I just don't understand. I don't understand what the problem is. It's just let people, I just don't get it. So that's why things like this are so important.
It is a film about looking at trans inclusivity in sports and focusing on roller derby as a progressive model for trans inclusion in sports. And it follows my story of, I used to skate for Sheffield Steel Roller Girls, and then I moved over beginning of this year to the Inhuman League, which is Sheffield's men's roller derby team.
And what inspired you to take part in this film festival?
I knew a little bit about the project from last year. I knew a couple of people that were involved. I'd seen the work that they'd done last year and was really, really impressed by it. Filmmaking, something that really I was interested in learning a little bit more about. I like learning new skills. So when a mutual friend sort of put out that open call, I thought, well, that seems like a good opportunity to get involved in.
So tell us a little bit about your journey, whatever you're comfortable in telling me about. Can you tell me about your journey and why you think it's important that other people feel comfortable to tell us about their journey too?
Okay, so for me personally, I identify as non-binary, transmasculine. I think that it's important that people within sort of the trans community have an opportunity to tell their own stories and use their own voice to tell those stories, rather than allowing other TV companies, etc., to tell those stories for us. The more input that we can have within that, the better and wider a sort of understanding of that kind of comes through. Yep.
And in what ways have you ever sort of helped other members of the trans community to be able to get their voice across within this?
Okay, so being involved within roller derby is a very, very large community anyway, but there's also sort of little subgroups that exist within that. So we do have like quite a lot of trans skaters or skaters that identify as being within that sort of gender variance. So being involved in projects like this means that like people like that get to see that there are opportunities to have that platform, and that kind of empowers people. So that means that we can continue to sort of be visible for other people that maybe don't feel quite so ready to be that vulnerable, and you can kind of have that sort of active voice.
And why do you think it's so important then to have this representation for this film festival? Why do you think it's important for the trans community?
Okay, so Sheffield is such a well-regarded hub for film. So I think that it is important that we don't just have little slivers that are just sort of inserted into Dockfest and stuff like that. Being able to have this festival means that we can really, really celebrate it all together. We can celebrate it, and then we can sort of move on and do further projects with one another, and we've already got those connections and links that we've made.
When you watch mainstream media, do you feel like you're represented enough? And when you are represented, do you think it's adequate representation?
I think that it's improving. I think that definitely over the past, I would say sort of 12, 18 months, it is definitely improving. There's less of the kind of tired old tropes kind of coming through. I'm sure that it still exists, but I think that there's so much user-led content now that you choose where you take your content from. People aren't of the habit of you just put on 4 channels of the TV and you kind of see what you want. You kind of search out what it is that you want to see, and there's so many people that are doing great jobs of user-led content that you don't really have to count on the mainstream media. But as I say, when the representation that is coming through is changing, and it's changing for the better, so hopefully we can continue with that.